Hello friends and welcome to Edupedia World Videos. This is the course Basics of Programming in C language, and right now what we are covering is the topic recursion. So we have already done some theoretical details about recursion and one example in recursion to calculate the factorial of a number. Okay, so right now what we are doing is another example using recursion, and in this example our objective of the program would be to find out the sum of first n numbers using recursion. Okay, so we will find out the sum of first n numbers using recursion. So we will ask user to enter a number which would be the limit, which would be n. Okay, and we will then sum up the digits from 0 to n. Okay, so let us see how we do that. So first of all, let us revise something about recursion. So recursion is the property of a programming language that allows the same function written in that programming language to call itself within its own body. Okay, so the same function will call itself. This property is known as recursion, and since the same function is calling itself, so it is creating a loop. Okay, so this is another technique of loop apart from the conventional for loop, while loop. This is another technique for loops. Okay, so what do we need for it? We obviously need one function that will call itself. So let us okay, so this function should return an integer because we have to return the sum of the first n numbers. So sum would be obviously an integer. So let us take the return type of this function as integer, and let us name this function as sum of digits. Okay, so now the input arguments to this number, there should be one input argument, and that should be the limit. Okay, that is done. Now we create the body of this function. So here is the body and it has to return the sum. So first let us take some values, like we have to take a condition. Okay, there will be a condition at which this function should actually return and not call itself. In the normal loops, in the normal recursion, when it is continuing, it should call itself again and again till a particular limit. So that condition we have to put over here, and that condition would be if. Okay, so this is the limit. What we have to do is we have to sum up all the digits from this limit to 0. Okay, so we will be decrementing this limit at every step, and we will check when our limit has reached 0. At that moment we will exit from this function. So that is what we are doing. Our condition should be limit should be less than or equal to 0. Okay, this can be equal to 0 also, but still, for just for precautionary measures, we will take it less than equal to 0. Okay, so now if the limit is less than equal to 0, then we have to simply return 0. Okay, why 0 and why we returned 1 in case of factorial? Because in factorial you were multiplying, so we did not have to go to 0. In case you multiply by 0, the whole factorial will become 0. But here, because we are adding up, okay, we are summing, so we don't have to return 1 at the last moment because it will alter our sum. Okay, so we can return 0 over here when our actual limit reaches 0. So adding 0 to the sum will not alter the sum at all, so it will actually return the correct sum. That is what we have to do. So if our limit reaches 0, we will return 0. If not, then we will call the same function, and it will be in our return statement, obviously, just like our factorial statement, factorial program had. So return limit plus sum of digits limit minus 1. So limit minus 1 is the new argument that we will pass to this function in the next iteration. So limit will be decremented by 1, and it will simply go to here, and again call the same function with the value of limit decremented by 1. It will again check it here. If the limit has now reached 0, it will return 0 straight away. If it has not reached 0, it will return this particular line, and it will say that limit plus sum of digits of limit minus 1 again. Okay, so this thing will keep on continuing. Okay, so here inside our main function, now we should make the arrangements to call our sum of digits function. So what we should do, first of all, we need a limit. So let us take this limit as an input from the user. So to take an input, first we need a variable where we will store that value. So declare a variable. It would be an integer variable, obviously. So let us name it here as the last number. Okay, so just for the sake of your clarity, I am not naming it as limit again. I could have named it as limit also, but this limit, the variable that we declare over here, and the variable that we have declared over here in the arguments of that function is completely different. Okay, in the input parameters, this is different and this is different. Okay, so that is why I have just named it as last number. So this would be the last number up to which we have to calculate the sum. Let us initialize it to 0, and now we will take the input from the user. So first thing, we need to give a message to the user to input the limit. So let us start it by a new line so that the message appears in a fresh line. Okay, it does not get prepended by some other message that might be there on the console. So we don't know that console would be empty or not every time this program is executed. So next line, printing a next line in the beginning is a nice option. Okay, now the message, please enter the limit. Okay, so just put a colon after that, and on the next line we will have the scanf statement, which is used to take the input from the user. Okay, so the format of the scanf is first scanf, then the format specifier of the data type of the variable that we have to take as an input. So data type of the variable is int, and the format specifier for int is %d. So we will have a %d over here, and then we have to give the address of the variable where the data has to be stored. So this is the variable, and its address would be given by the address of operator, and address of operator in C language is ampersand. Now the name of the variable. So this means that read an integer value from the console and store it at the address of this variable. Okay, so that is how compiler interprets it and stores the value entered by the user at that particular memory location. Okay, now we have entered the number. Now the only thing which is remaining is to print the sum on the screen. Okay, so we will have our printf statement again, and inside the printf statement we will have a constant message also, and along with it we will print the values also. So the constant message can be printed as it is. So first of all, let us have a new line. So this \n, which we have used earlier also, is nothing but the escape sequence for new line character, for printing the new line character. So in C language and in many other languages, there are some characters that cannot be read otherwise when you have a new line. So although computer internally has to have a symbol for that, okay, it does not know what a new line is, because a new line can be seen only when it is displayed on screen. Okay, so it can only be seen at that time. So internally computer has to maintain a particular character for that. Okay, here I have to put a new line. So for those kind of characters, to make them user readable while giving the input, okay, well, we are coding into the program, so we also have to specify that here you have to put a new line. So we have introduced in C programming language and most of other programming languages the terms known as escape sequences. So these escape sequences are used to print those characters which are not otherwise human readable. Okay, you can print tabs. If I want to print tab, I will do \t. If I want to print a new line, I will do \n. Okay, these kinds of escape sequences are available. Okay, now I will print the result. So the sum of first %t numbers is equal to %t. So this %d over here is again the format specifier for the type of variable that we have to print, and we have to print both integers only. So here our limit would come. So we will say that sum of the first those many numbers which you have entered right now, which user has entered, so that would be in last number variable. So the value of last number variable will come here. Suppose the value is 10, it will say the sum of the first 10 numbers is and percentage %d. So here is where our actual computed sum of the first 10 numbers would come. So to get those values substituted, what you have to do, we have to give the name of the variables in the same sequence as we have the format specifiers for them. So first name would be of the variable, that is last number, okay, because this is the range, this is the limit. And the second would be our sum. So sum we have not stored into any other variable, but since our function is already returning an integer itself, so we can straight away write our function. We don't need to take a variable to store the sum into it and then print it. That is also an option, but you can also straight away specify the function in the printf statement, because it is returning an integer only, and this percentage %d would be replaced by the integer value that is returned by that particular function. So what is our function? Our function is sum of digits, and we have to pass the limit to that, and in our code we have stored the limit in the variable named as last number. So we'll call our function sum of digits, and then we will pass our limit last number. Okay, this we have passed over here. Now our program should run, and it should print our sum of the first n numbers. Okay, so let us first save the program, and then we will go and build it over here. This is used to compile the code. Okay, it has given some warnings to us. One error is there. Let us check what that is. Okay, just let me correct this error. Okay, so it is saying that the control reaches end of a non-void function. So this mistake is something which I have been pointing out every time in my discussions, my tutorials, that we should always write the return statement as soon as we write our function which has to return some value, so that we do not forget to write it later on. So right now we have forgotten it, so that is why the compiler gave an error that the control reaches the end of a non-void function. So we have put our return statement, and since from main function we have to return zero value, by default we are returning a zero value, so we are not changing this default behavior. So I have put a statement return 0. So now our program must compile. Let us give it a try again. Yes, it has compiled with 0 errors and 0 warnings. Let us try and execute our code. Okay, so now it is asking me for the limit. Okay, if I enter the limit, the first limit is 5. The sum of the first 5 numbers from 1 to 5 would be 15. Okay, 5 plus 4, that would be 9, and then we have 3 plus 2, which would be 5. So 9 plus 5, 14, and plus 1 would be 15. So our answer is correct. It is 15. Okay, so our program is working correctly, and we will try it again with a different value. So let me this time enter a digit 10. So the first 10 numbers have a sum equal to 55. So let us see. Yes, it is working correctly. So our discussion and our logic was correct. So we have used recursion to calculate the sum of first n numbers. So that is fine. Okay, so I hope you understood the video and you enjoyed it too. Continue to watch the course Basics of Programming in C language. Thank you.